All right, and welcome to this webinar, today authenticity and social proof, unlocking the keys to content marketing with Ted Goldwyn of Success Story Studio and our guest Paul Sidlansky of Lake Road Advisors. Take it away, Ted.
Great. Thank you, Kimberly. Appreciate that. And yes, admittedly, the title of this month's webinar is a little bit of a mouthful: authenticity and social proof, unlocking the keys to content marketing success. So I want to thank everyone for joining us and registering for this webinar today. My name is Ted Goldwyn, and I will be your host. And let's start by just kind of sharing the agenda for this afternoon's webinar. We'll begin with a few introductions. Briefly, I will touch on some of the latest trends that are happening in the content marketing world. We'll introduce Paul Sidlansky, and Paul's going to dive into his journey to success in growing his business, Lake Road Advisors. We'll talk a bit about what's working now in terms of content marketing for small businesses. And we'll end with Paul's 5 tips for maximizing your reach. So first, I want to share a little bit about myself and what we do here at Success Story Studio. So again, my name is Ted Goldwyn. I'm the president of Ted Goldwyn Communications, LLC. We're a content marketing, researching, and consultant firm focused primarily on the financial services industry. And I'm also the founder of Success Story Studio. Success Story Studio is a boutique marketing agency devoted to one thing and one thing only. Our mission is to help small businesses and professional services firms like financial advisors and planners, CPAs, accountants, and others turn their client success stories into powerful new business attraction tools. You could think of it as turbocharged testimonial marketing. And today I'm joined by Paul Sidlansky of Lake Road Advisors, who you will learn just a little bit more about in a few minutes. Before we begin with the content today, I did want to share a little bit about this webinar series and why we are doing it. So this is the first of a planned series of webinars that we're going to do on roughly a monthly basis, sponsored by Success Story Studio. And our intention is to share best practices, tips, and examples of what's working now in small businesses and professional services content marketing. And more importantly, providing you with actionable takeaways for how you can leverage social proof to attract new clients and grow your business. So with that, I thought we'd kick this thing off with a few current statistics about what's happening in the world of content marketing. And these statistics are from the most recent survey report produced by CMI, the Content Marketing Institute. This is from their 2023 B2C, business to consumer content marketing benchmark survey. I do urge you to visit Content Marketing Institute online. They put out a wealth of information about content marketing in all industries and across all sectors, B2C, B2B, etc. And some great statistics and tips and really actionable techniques that you could use to build your content marketing program and strategy within your business, regardless of your size or industry. So I do urge you to go to that. But here are a few interesting data points that I thought were relevant to today's conversation. One is that in the latest survey, 70% of marketers say that content marketing has become more important over the past year. And 61% plan to invest in social media and community building in the next year, which is up from 48% in 2022. And I think that one's particularly relevant to when we get to talking about social proof and the importance of building that community and expanding your reach to your target audience. And in terms of what type of content, getting down to the nitty gritty of what methods content marketers are using in their program, short articles and posts and blogs, less than 1,500 words. Nearly 90% of marketers are using that approach. Videos have really grown in the last few years at 71%. Case studies which we're going to dive into a little bit today, are still very popular and effective at 51%. And podcasts and audio are also growing at 31% of firms using those approaches. So with that, I'd like to take this moment to introduce our really special guest that we have on our first ever webinar today, and that's Paul Sidlansky of Lake Road Advisors. So Paul founded Lake Road Advisors, LLC 8 years ago, and he's worked in the financial services industry for over 20 years. Paul received a bachelor's degree in economics from Marist College and holds an MBA from New York University's Leonard N. Stern School of Business. That's one of several things that Paul and I frequently have in common. Paul is a certified financial planner and a member of the National Association of Personal Financial Advisors, NAPFA, as well as the XY Planning Network. And in full disclosure, I'm proud to say that Paul also serves as my personal financial advisor and planner for my family. I've been working with him for at least the last 6, maybe 7 years now. And he's really made a difference in my family's financial picture, and he's been an immense source of assistance to us. And as is relevant to today's conversation, I've been able to really observe how Paul has effectively used content marketing as well as other marketing strategies to grow his business, provide value to his clients, and really expand his reach over that 8-year period, which is why I invited him to really chat about those topics with us today. So with that, Paul, welcome.
Hi, Ted. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be the first guest and to chat about marketing, which I know you and I talk a lot about offline, and it'll be fun today. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, and really happy to have you here, and thank you for taking the time. So I thought we'd kick off, maybe if you could share a little bit about your background, and specifically, what led you to launch your own firm, Lake Road Advisors. I know maybe you could talk a little bit about where you came from before that, but I know that was a huge leap of faith to go out there and hang out your shingle, and it took a lot of confidence and guts to do that. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you started and your journey along the way.
Sure. So like Ted, we both grew up on Long Island and grew up around the city. And I, after college, ended up working on Wall Street for 13 years. And then really had a big pivotal moment in my life when I had 3 kids under 3 years old, and realized that commuting in from Connecticut to downtown and midtown Manhattan wasn't really the lifestyle I wanted for the long term. And my wife and agreed, and just wasn't conducive to a happy family life. So in 2012, decided to move to upstate New York. And up until that time had been in institutional equity, so working more with hedge funds, large companies, but had always been interested in more of the individual personal finance. I joined a local firm and was there about 3 years, but quite frankly, I've always had an entrepreneurial itch. And at the time, in my mid-30s, I thought now or never was going to be the time to try it on my own. And luckily, I had the support of my wife, which quite frankly, I think at one point she said, if you don't do it, stop talking about it, because it was just becoming something that was all consuming. And I ended up starting Lake Road Advisors in 2016 because I really thought there was a better way to do financial planning and investment management to really help mid-career professionals with young families. It's a pivot point in your life. When you have your first kids, when you're in your mid-career, there's so many things that come up: insurance, taxes, investing, estate planning. It can be really overwhelming. And it was really a niche that I wanted to focus on and I wanted to connect with. And so that's how really the idea came. And like I said, I thought there was a better way to do it, leveraging technology and making a little bit more geared toward people my age going through the issues that I was going through versus the traditional retirement planning approach.
Excellent. Thanks for that, sharing that background, Paul. And yeah, it is funny how much we had in common in terms of, growing up on Long Island and living downstate and, kind of working in the corporate environment down there with the young kids. And then we both ended up here in, central Western New York State as it happened. But, I remember, when we first met, it was actually before I think you decided to go out and start your own business, but we had met at a few networking events. And I was just starting, my own practice as well in freelance writing after, 20 plus years in the corporate world. And, I remember, when you did start your business, I started following some of your content and what you were producing, whether it was blogging. I don't think you were quite into doing videos yet, some bylined articles. And I just remember, having gotten to know you a little bit, but then really kind of developing that level of confidence in your expertise and your experience just by becoming familiar with you through the content that you were producing. And, I recall from my wife and I, that was kind of a, big part of our decision to, to move our financial picture over to you at that time. But I was wondering, so early days, speaking from my own experience of growing, a business, the early days can be very, very challenging. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of those challenges that you faced at that point in terms of, developing an audience for what you do, generating leads, and potential clients and particularly ideal clients for your business who you'd be able to help. What were some of those things you were facing in those maybe first couple of years since putting out your shingle?
Yeah, so first and foremost, it's just getting up the confidence to try it on your own. So for any business owner out there who's thinking about it, I understand that. And I could just say for me, the hurdle, the mindset change came when I tried to think about what's the worst case scenario. And I mapped out the worst case scenario, which was if I didn't make a dollar for 2 years. And at the time, my wife and I had enough money saved where we could last for 2 years without me bringing any income. And I thought, okay, well, that's pretty bad, but it's not gonna destroy our family. I'd still be able to get a job after 2 years. It probably wouldn't be what I wanted to do, but I would be more upset if I looked back and never gave it a shot. So I think the mental aspect first and being comfortable with the risk and the worst case scenario gave me the confidence to give it a shot. Now, of course, starting a business from scratch poses many challenges, especially in the financial services area. And so for me, my first approach was trying to develop relationships and get the word out about what I was doing. So I became, I was never one who was comfortable in sales. And quite frankly, I never had any formal training on it. And so when I first started, sales kind of felt like a dirty word. And so for me, the most comfortable and really still to this day, the most effective way of building relationships and finding new prospective clients to work with is really just trying to add value and be helpful and listen and be a resource, right? It's not so much
Mhm.
about trying to sell somebody something. To me, it's being valuable, being a resource, even if that's something that's not financial related, if it's a connection, if it's a relationship, if it's somebody who I can introduce you to. Just trying to be helpful as the first step. And what can I do for you was one of those first questions when meeting people. Like I said, regardless if it had to do with finance or financial planning. And what I found was that's just a great way to be, to build a relationship and to allow people to be comfortable. And ultimately, while that person might not need your services or it might not be for them, building that goodwill, building that relationship, it's going to allow people to say, hey, maybe one day down the road, they'll need help, a family member, a friend. And then, now they have you as somebody who could be a good resource or somebody they could go to. So I think for me, starting out when it came to marketing, those networking meetings were huge,
Mhm.
really impactful, building those relationships and just trying to add value in every encounter.
Great, great. Aside from the in-person networking, what were some other methods that you used, particularly early on? And maybe that were able to get you a little bit wider reach than attending these in-person type events.
Yeah, no, a great point. And this was, 2016, so pre-Zoom, and we can talk about how that has just changed the world in terms of marketing
Yeah,
and the ability to
exactly.
connect with folks. But back then, I did try to do some SEO, and I can say it was and some paid ads, and it was a colossal failure. The reason being, again, me being naive at the time to really the whole marketing world. I had seen some other financial planners and advisors, and quite frankly, a doctor
Hmm.
friend of mine who had used SEO and paid ads, and just their businesses had exploded. And I said, "Oh, well, that seems easy. I can pay for SEO or pay for some ads." And it to this day, it was probably the single biggest financial mistake in terms of trying to build a business that I made, because for SEO to work, you have to have good content, and I had none of that, right?
Right.
So the SEO didn't add any value. So that was a really big wake up call. Also, something I tried to was the kind of online matchmaking services. So there
Mhm.
have been so many throughout the years for financial planners and financial advisors, and I've yet to see one that has really worked in the long term, whether it be because the leads aren't qualified, whether it be because the people aren't serious, or and when I was exposed to most recently, the fees that they charge for
Mhm.
the connectivity was just really prohibitive, and it didn't make many relationships profitable. So yeah, in that first year or two, I was really willing to try a lot of different things, and I learned a few lessons the hard way.
Definitely. So from that, what type of approaches did you end up landing on that were more effective and maybe that you stuck with during the course of growing your business?
Yeah, so something I've stuck with to today is just content creation, and
Hmm.
it's really hard to do, especially consistently. And one of the things I'm most proud of is that I have been pretty consistent for the almost 8 years, and we've built up a really nice library of blogs first,
Hmm.
then videos, and I've recently started on webinars. But the content creation was first to kind of tell my story and say who I was, what was important to me, let people get to know me a little bit. And then quickly after trying to establish that, it's really into just, again, adding value and solving problems or giving some insight to commonly asked questions. So really what I did is I took a list of all of the things that people would ask me, and a lot of the reasons why people would reach out and say, "Hey, I think it's time for us to work with a financial planner." And so I tried to answer all those questions that I would hear, and started writing content around those questions. And it was just a
Hmm.
great way, number one, to attract the type of folks who I wanted to work with at the time by trying to answer the questions that they were facing in their financial life. And then also creating a content library help
Hmm.
build up some of that social proof I know we're going to talk a little bit about. So content marketing, creating content, although it's time consuming, uh, definitely a huge, huge important piece of our overall marketing plan.
Yeah, one thing that I've been really impressed with in terms of your content marketing strategy, and this is coming from me as a client, is that I get your newsletters and I get your blog posts and stuff, and you're putting value out there not just for prospects, and it's not just to try to get clicks. It's really trying to provide value to your own clients who you're already helping. So like for me personally, I know not every piece of content you put out there is going to be targeted for me and my family's needs, but a surprising amount of it really is. So it's like probably one out of three or four articles you publish is, has really impactful tips and actionable things that I can do in my financial life. And the timing always seems to hit like right when I'm thinking about that topic, whether it's investing in real estate or, preparing to send your kids to college, or, in my case, what you need to do to get your financial house in order in your 50s. I know you've done the series for every decade. So I think you do a fantastic job with that. And I was wondering if, I don't remember if we've talked about this, but are you familiar with the book, They Ask You Tell? Because you're actually following that strategy to a T. And it's for everybody out there. I highly recommend that you get that book. It's really geared towards small businesses, and the type of content that you should be putting out on your website. And it's exactly what you said, Paul. It's about answering those frequently asked questions. And it's as simple as like spending some time brainstorming, thinking about the most common questions that you get from prospects and clients, or the most common Google searches that people do when they're looking for a service provider like you, and just answering them direct and head on. It could be in the form of a blog, could be in form of a video, could be in form of a webinar, you name it, but just answering those questions openly and honestly. And A, that will get clicks. And B, that's a way of really establishing those connections with your prospective clients, and really establishing that authenticity, for which you can build a relationship on. So, yeah, surprised you haven't read that, Paul, because
Yeah,
you're
no.
checking all the boxes for.
I'm
Yeah.
going to add it to my list, and I think another a great way to collect, the questions that are top of mind for your prospective clients.
Mhm.
When we have a conversation with a prospective client, we ask them to fill out a brief intake form, just so we can kind of
Right.
cut through and be mindful and use the most of our time together. And on there, we put, why are you reaching out today? What's most
Hmm.
important to you? What's top of mind? And so I have hundreds of those questions collated over 8 years. And
Hmm.
that's a really cool resource to be able to go back to and see what's top of mind. And surprisingly, the issues really haven't changed, especially then because we're focused on a certain niche of folks.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes total sense. It's all about their pain points, their fears, their challenges, right? And a lot of them are very common and similar across different people.
Absolutely.
Good. So yeah, so you mentioned kind of content, building that content library, and I know you've been doing it in a few different ways. Are there any particular approaches or channels, and these could be social media channels or traditional media channels or otherwise, that are working for you right now at this stage of your business?
Yeah, so like I said, I've been writing blog posts the whole time, but in the last 3 or 4 years, as video became more prevalent, and I quite frankly became more comfortable on camera and took a class. The I would say the biggest thing for me, the most impactful, is probably going to be videos, because we have clients or prospective clients or folks who come to us and say, "Oh wow." I feel like I know you already because I've watched a few of your videos and you did a great job of explaining things, or I really related to that issue you
Hmm.
talked about. And you can't really get that level of comfort or intimacy from a blog post. And so for
Right.
me, the video has been really powerful. The other thing in terms of the use of video, for prospective clients, what we've been trying to do lately is send out a quick 1 minute video to say, "Hi, I'm Paul. I'm really looking forward to meeting you.
Hmm.
This is what we're going to talk about. This is how long it's going to take. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email. If not, really excited to meet you." And that's been something that we've gotten a lot of great positive feedback. Again, kind of as an icebreaker for some folks, and to give them a little more of that feeling that this isn't just a form they put in online and they're going to talk to a 1-800 number customer service rep, right? There's a little bit more
Yeah.
intimacy around it. So while the blog and the channels of, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, I do think
Hmm.
the videos have added a whole nother level to our efforts.
Great. Not to get too far into the weeds here, but is there any particular technology that you're using for those videos, either the more publicly available ones or the welcome videos that you're sending to clients?
Yeah, so at first I used a software called Camtasia, but I realized it was probably too high tech for me. I didn't need all the bells and whistles, so I switched to
Yeah.
Loom. And I don't know
Yeah,
if you're familiar with Loom.
I
Loom's
am. Yep.
great. It's
Hmm.
simple, it's easy to use. You get quick feedback from folks. You can tell when they've watched your video. They can write back to you through the video. Loom has been great for us, and we've got a lot of uses not only in marketing and customer and client facing, but also like little training videos we've put together, both internally for our team or for clients. If they have a question on a software they're using, we can send them a little video. So Loom's fantastic.
Great, great. Yeah, I've experimented with the free version of that. I assume maybe you're using the paid version, which has a
Yeah,
little bit more in terms of bells and whistles, right? Worth the investment, though.
absolutely.
Yeah, great. Good. I want to shift gears a little bit here and talk about this concept that we mentioned a couple times here about social proof. And I'm really curious to hear about how you're employing social proof in your business, and in terms of where, well, first of all, how you're using it. So case studies, testimonials are a few of the ways that you could, online reviews are a few of the ways that social proof can be gathered and disseminated. But I'm also curious in terms of where you're finding it to be most effective in the sales cycle, in terms of client acquisition and those types of things.
Yeah, so social proof is hugely important, especially in a business like mine, where our product is our process and the relationship, right? We're not making
Hmm.
widgets, and so some folks may or may not know testimonials and reviews were not allowed in the financial services industry
Hmm.
up until 2022, and there was some rule changes really that made a huge difference for us because our business, although we're located in upstate New York, we're virtual, and 95% of our client meetings are done via Zoom. The niche of folks we're going looking to work with, they don't want to come into an office. They don't want to drive 45 minutes each way. They don't want to sit down. They're busy. They want to talk for 30 minutes midday via Zoom. So the ability to have that social proof became even more important for a firm like ours, that the old school meet and greet or coffee was ruled out. And so
Hmm.
what are we utilizing? Really all the above. So first and foremost, we have Google reviews. So every client that we work with, we ask them to put a Google review in for us. I think we've
Hmm.
got over 30 plus of those now. Still working on all clients to put them in, but Google reviews have been huge, just because just like when you go to Amazon to buy a product, you want to see what the reviews are. And so that's
Right.
been really helpful. Client testimonials, and a shout out to Ted here, and his firm. But one of the number one questions that we would get would be, how does it work? I've never worked with a financial planner. What do you actually do? And what does a relationship look like? And so for us in the past, it would be, um, we'd explain it to folks, but what we found is having a testimonial to say, well, here are the Smiths, right? This is their family. This is how it worked for them. And here's a
Right.
2-page testimonial. And then we can hand that to this prospective client, and they can get a real good idea of what it looks like. And so for us, we found that testimonial has been really helpful at the top of the funnel. Right, when you have that initial conversation,
Hmm.
it gives that person the ability to be able to say, okay, well, and we have it right on our website. What is it like working with Paul and Haley? How does the interaction occur? What can I expect in the relationship? Having
Hmm.
that piece of social proof right up front allows somebody to get comfort, and it allows them to really understand what it looks like under the hood to work with us.
Great, great. Yeah, I love those examples. And as you were talking, Paul, I mean, definitely in your type of business, now that they allow the SEC allows you to use testimonials and reviews and case studies in your business, it's kind of opened the door quite a bit for financial advisors and planners. But as you were talking, I can see how it's just as important, really, for any relationship based business, which, let's face it, most small businesses are extremely relationship based, and that's whether it's a professional services firm like accountants or a CPA firm, or consultants, or even some types of retail shops or IT consultants, you name it. Everything is based on relationship these days. And
Yeah.
sometimes that, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. And just sorry to cut you off. One thing I wanted to add that you made me remember where the testimonials have helped is that a lot of times folks, you'd have a really great first conversation and then
Hmm.
they would say, hey, can I speak to a couple of clients so I can ask them questions? And we like to do that sometimes, but it can be onerous to call up a client and say, hey, by the way, would you speak to so and so? And so instead, now we have this thing where I could say, sure, I can look into that, but in the interim, here's so and so's story who's worked with
Hmm.
us, and you can read firsthand their experience. So that has been really helpful. And to your point about relationships, at the end of the day, there are thousands of financial planners and advisors, right? There are thousands of writers. And when it comes down to it, people want to work with people they know, like, and trust.
Hmm.
And that all comes down to relationships and having that content, anything you can put out about how you think, about your background, about your family, about your process, the more material you have out there for people to consume, it's only going to make you a stronger candidate in their eyes because they're going to get to know you and see if that's the right person for them.
Absolutely. That's great. Um, Good. Anything else you want to add on kind of the whole social proof question, and how maybe some examples of how it's worked for you in your business? Yeah, I don't know if you have like a specific anonymous client who like read a testimonial or a case study or read a Google review and said, all right, now I'm going to go with Paul and Haley because they seem like the right fit for what I do.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to have a couple who have recently said to me, I read your story. I read how you were kind of living the rat race in Manhattan
Mm,
and
yeah.
picked up and really pivoted, switched gears, and started over from scratch. And that really resonated with me, and I really appreciate that. And that's what I'm thinking about because I do think, like I said, aside from all the complexity that you're approached with at this time of your life, a lot of people after working maybe 15, 20 years say, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. How can I change my path? I'm not on the path I want to be on. And
Hmm.
so, well, at first I was a little hesitant to put my story out there just because I'm more of
Right.
a private person. It has been crucial in letting me connect with people because
Hmm.
people can kind of see what I'm about. And like I said, I've been lucky enough to have a few people to point to that backstory and say, yeah, that's the type of person I want to work with because they've been through what I'm going through and they've come out the other end with a different path.
Yeah. Paul, that's such a great point because, one thing we all have to remember, and I have to remind myself too, is that, we're all in the business of helping people, and every business is a people business, and it's all about relationships and making those personal connections. So, and I'm the same way, especially early on. I was very, I tend to be a little bit on the shy and reticent side. I'm not big about sharing my story, but as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, it's important for you to share your story and to be comfortable with that. Because as people learn more about you, that's how you find that common ground. I mean, people are at our heart, we are all the same at a certain level. All right. We all have a lot of common attributes, a lot of common desires, a lot of common goals, and there's commonalities even within our diverse backgrounds. So the more that you get comfortable with sharing that story as a business owner, I think the more success you will see at not only attracting more clients, but attracting the right clients who are the right fit for what you do.
Absolutely. And I think you're stealing some of my top 5 takeaways, but
Oh, I jumped ahead. Well, you know what? On that note, let's move into that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, because now this is where the rubber hits the road. We're going to get into Paul's. Let me get to it. There we go. Paul's 5 tips for success. So, Paul, I'll let you take this away.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah.
Top 5. So, if I had to boil it down when it came to things that can help with your marketing, for me, first and foremost, define your niche. And that is something that took a little bit for me to understand who's the type of person that we are trying to work with and help. Uh, it's really counterintuitive, and I struggle with this at the start. If you think about,
Mhm.
there are, thousands of people, millions of people out there you could work with. Why narrow it down, right? You're just limiting your opportunities. But in fact, if you think about it, by really creating a niche and narrowing your scope, you're increasing your ability, because now you have a focus and somebody who you're going to resonate with, and somebody who's going to read your stuff and say, yeah, this is exactly who I'm looking for, versus if you're just kind of trying to work with all different types of people, not really going to resonate with anybody and individually. So number one, define your niche. Who is that type of person you're trying to work with? Uh, who is that person? What are you trying to help them solve? What is that problem you're assisting them with? The second, and this goes along with the niche, is once you have your niche, create an avatar. And so a marketing firm I worked with early on had me map out literally who that person was. And for us, it was a married couple. They had 3 kids. You give the person a name. They had a dog. You write out what music they like to listen to, where they get their news, what's important to them, what's not important to them. Creating this client avatar
Mhm.
really helps when you are creating content, because you have a specific person in mind. Now, luckily, now I have multiple clients who are very similar to that avatar, and it's much easier to do. But when you're
Mhm.
starting, have that avatar, write it out. Again, give that person or those people a name, and really think about that person's likes, where they consume their media, what's important to them, what's not. Be as detailed as possible, because it can only help you when you create content.
Mhm.
Number 3 here, tell your story. We spoke a little bit about that. I was a little hesitant about that to start with, but your story is your differentiator. There's
Mhm.
thousands and thousands of people providing financial advice, but what we tell folks is, yeah, we have certain levels of education. We're certified financial planners, but ultimately, I've had a different life journey, and bringing those personal experiences in with the education is going to give you a process and experience that's going to be different to everybody else's. And so that's kind of the differentiator when we think about our service offering and the types of people we're going to work with. So tell your story. Like
Mhm.
I said, it might feel uncomfortable to start, but make sure that you're allowing people in, and you're allowing to know a little bit about you, so they can understand, or why not you might be a good fit for them.
Right.
The fourth thing is, understand who you're helping and really what you're doing for them. And this kind of goes to the niche a little bit, and the avatar, but what's the problem you're solving for?
Mhm.
And address those pain points. Use that specific language, right? In our business, the pain points are, I feel like I'm behind. I don't know what I don't know. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know if I can retire on time. I don't know if I'm going to have enough money to lead the lifestyle I want. Am I going to be able to support my kids, to help them pay for college? All these types of things, hit those pain points, understand what you're helping people with, because that's going to be really important, especially, like as I've said, to drive content creation. and you're trying to connect with these folks who you're trying to work with. And the best way to do it is to help them solve problems and to give them insights on how they can do it as well. The last thing here, and I really, this is hugely important, especially for entrepreneurs and people starting out, but don't let perfect get in your way. Just get started. I'm excited to be part of TED giving the webinar channel a shot here, and I appreciate.
Not perfect. It's not
Yeah,
perfect.
no, but nothing's ever going to be perfect.
Right.
And I look back at all the different marketing channels and mediums that I've tried, and there are some missteps, but I tried them. And if you wait and try to get it exactly perfect, you're never going to get there. And so getting out, trying different things, and don't just try it once or twice, right? If you're going to do webinars, do it for a year. If you're going to do videos, do it for a year or two, because you never know when it's going to hit, when it's going to resonate with somebody. And that type of content will be out there forever. And it's just another feather in your cap when you're building really your marketing inventory. So those are really 5 tips that I would say if you're thinking about how you can market and what's a good approach. If you focus on those 5, I think you'll be in pretty good shape from a marketing plan perspective.
Yeah, Paul, these are all fantastic tips. I love everything you're saying here. Starting right from defining your niche, that's one that I've been a real proponent of since I started my entrepreneurial journey, whether it was, focusing on the financial services industry where I had background and experience, when I started my freelance writing journey, to Success Story Studio, and really focusing on the needs of small business and professional services firms and offering one thing. It's I think people who are starting out as entrepreneurs, they are often fearful of trying to narrow their options, but what I have found is that as you really hone in and target on who you're serving, how you're serving them, it actually opens so many more and wider doors for you, and it becomes a much quicker process for you to be perceived as the expert in that particular field and to increase your exposure, whether it's through Google search or just through networking or getting known within that smaller, narrower industry or product or service that you're offering, that you're the expert, you're the one who's the right person to help them. If you try to be a generalist, if you try to serve everyone, very often, you're going to get lost in the ocean, and you may not be able to serve them most effectively if you're trying to be all things to all people. So great stuff. I know we're getting close to the end here, but I did want to leave a little bit of time for questions. So people, if those of you who are in our audience today, if you have any questions, you could throw them into the chat. We'll just give it a minute here. Let's see if we have any chat questions. Okay, so so we did get one here, Paul, and I'll let you take a stab at it, and then I could chime in as well.
Sure.
What is the best way to ask a current client for a testimonial, or to participate in a case study project? What have you found that works best for you?
Sure. I think you need to take a step back and think about who your advocates are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think we all have clients who are folks who want to see your success, who are partners, and who are folks who are looking to help in any way they can. And so you kind of see that when it comes from referrals. When you think about referrals, right? You have some clients who will refer you, and then you have some clients who won't refer you no matter what, right? Maybe these are the types of folks who wouldn't even give a restaurant a recommendation, right? So I would locate and try to identify those folks who are more apt to be comfortable in doing that, and then really just approach them honestly and say, look, I'm as part of my marketing effort to grow my business, testimonials are now a big deal, and it's a comfort for prospective clients to say, hey, look, here's the Goldwyn family, and this is their story, and this is what they've been through, and this is their experience and what's worked for them. And I'd love to use you and your family if you're comfortable. You know, it would be a short interview process, ask you a bunch of questions, and you just answer them honestly. And so I think it's thinking of who are those folks who are your advocates and want to, you know, see you continue to grow, the real partners, identify them and just tell them what you're trying to do and how it can be helpful to other prospective clients.
Yeah, Paul, that's great. And I like to call them your raving fans, you know, those
Yeah.
who are, you know, like you said, biggest advocates. And it's pretty easy to find those people. You know, go back through your email inbox for the last 3 months and see who sent you an email saying, thanks, Paul, you were such a huge help to me and my husband in this and that situation. Thank you for everything. Boom, there's someone who's ripe to provide a testimonial and perhaps even sit for a case study interview, do something a little bit more substantial. Or people who have left you a Google review, very positive. So they're out there. Oftentimes you'll know who they are, you know who you've helped and who you've really brought value to. And the ask doesn't have to be really difficult either. Just as you said, be open, be honest, explain the value you know that a testimonial would offer to your business and how it would help you attract ideal clients just like them. Last question for you, Paul, is, you know, so you mentioned that you're on a few social media platforms. Are any of them sticking out for you right now as being most effective? You know, I think you mentioned, you know, Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. You know, in your particular business, are any of those working particularly well for you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, I would say, is working well from an exposure standpoint because that's really our niche, mid-career professionals, right? They're all over LinkedIn. I will
Mhm.
say it's been a little disappointing recently. It's become a lot more spammy,
Yep,
which
I've
it
seen the same
hadn't,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, it hadn't been that way for a long, long time. And I feel like there's a little bit of a creep there, but for getting out to my company's specific client base and the folks we're trying to with, LinkedIn. Unfortunately, I'm not a big personal fan of Facebook, but people are on it, and so you need to kind of be there as well too, because we have a lot of people say, "Oh, I saw something that you wrote on Facebook," and so even though again I've some issues with Facebook from you know, a business and what they're doing to the world.
Right.
You know, it's a place that people who are, you know, mid 40s and late 30s, the people who we're trying to work with, they're still on there.
Hmm. Great. All right. Well, thank you, Paul. I know we went a few minutes over. We're going to close things out. Share my screen again. Okay. So thank you, Paul Sedlansky, for joining us today. This was, you know, an immense privilege for us to have you and your firm, Lake Road Advisors, uh, you know, representing us here today and guesting with us on this webinar. Anything you'd like to offer in terms of how people can learn more about you and your firm, Paul?
Sure. Yeah. If and again, thank you for the opportunity, Ted. It's always fun to talk to you and talk about marketing and business. But lakeroadadvisors.com. You can find me, Paul Sedlansky, on LinkedIn. But those are probably the two best ways to see what we're about and to read some of our content. But yeah, Ted, this was great, and I wish you continued success with Success Story Studio and your webinar series.
Great, thanks, Paul. And those of you listening today, watching today, I do urge you to go out and check out Paul's website, lakeroadadvisors.com. Even if you're not in the market for a fantastic financial planner at the moment, just check out the amazing content and wealth of content that they have out there in terms of videos, blogs, bylined articles that he's done with, you know, national media. It's You'll trust me, you will learn. There's a lot of value added content there. And then in terms of Success Story Studio, we can learn more about us. Please visit www.successstorystudio.com. Visit our website to join our monthly newsletter list, and also to download a free copy of our Fast Story Guide to leveraging your best client stories to attract new business. So it's a great read. And our monthly newsletter does offer tips, tricks, videos, and articles to help you supercharge all of your marketing efforts. With that, thank you everyone for joining us today on this first of our webinar series. You will be receiving a follow-up email with a link to the on-demand recording when that is available. And we appreciate it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.